In the wake of Summer Game Fest and the gaming showcase season, many PlayStation fans and gamers are left asking, what is PlayStation doing? And more specifically, certain questions are popping up. Where are all the first-party studios? Even more specifically, are we getting a Spider-Man 2 DLC? And if we are, where is it? Why no announcement or trailer during Summer Game Fest? And when it comes to what did get announced, other questions are being voiced. Why are you launching a Horizon game on the Nintendo Switch? Sure, it's a Lego game, but your first-party studio, Guerrilla, co-developed it, and it appears that PlayStation is publishing it. So not only are a lot of your first-party devs being very quiet, one of them is helping make a game that's landing on PS5 along with PC and the Nintendo Switch. Some fans are even asking, why was your big first-party announcement Astrobot and not a big tentpole AAA game? And all of this is undergirded by the million-dollar question. Why didn't PlayStation do a showcase during the gaming showcase season? They did one last year, but this year, they just did a state of play with no mention of a future showcase. Each of these questions likely has answers, but PlayStation loves to keep their cards close to their chest. Spider-Man 2 DLC is almost assuredly coming. They've continued to push out free updates and cosmetics to the game, and the commercial success, combined with internal hints about more content or story, seems to almost guarantee that there will be DLC. But what would cause Sony to wait this long to say anything about it? Why not reveal it during your State of Play, or give it to Jeff Keighley the way you gave him the release date of Spider-Man 2 last year? And LEGO Horizon is causing quite a stir, but on both ends of the spectrum. Some are calling it a great choice, while hardcore PlayStation fans feel like it is a betrayal. And while Astrobot appears to be making a splash with its previews, it seems like a meager showing for the showcase season against the backdrop of no PlayStation showcase and a very strong Xbox showcase. Every weekday here on Reforge Gaming, I tell you what I think about a gaming topic, and then we go to a live stream where I want to hear what you think. So, if you like this content and want more, be sure to hit like and subscribe. And in this video, I am going to try to answer all these questions. What's going on with Spider-Man 2 DLC, LEGO Horizon, and Astrobot? But first, why did we not get a PlayStation showcase? Ever since PlayStation stopped attending E3, it has felt like they've gone off the beaten path and seem to march to the beat of their own drum. One year, they didn't do a showcase at all, and after making everybody wait for one, in 2023, when they finally did do a show, it was largely lacking most of their first-party studios, and the studios that showed up, like Fair Games, Concord, and Marathon, were all in a similar vein and simply had cinematic trailers. Then, this year, we get a State of Play right before June, which is still largely considered E3 time, or as I like to call it, showcase season. And the State of Play makes no mention of a future showcase, which I criticize them for, as many were expecting one, and others may not even know the difference between a State of Play and a full-blown annual showcase, leaving them curious as to why it was so short and so thin. But as difficult as it feels to predict what PlayStation may do with their marketing or their first-party studio announcements, I think one theory is especially compelling. This all has to do with the PS5 Pro, and it all seemingly started with the showcase in 2023. Notable insider Tom Henderson wrote an article at the time for Insider Gaming in response to the showcase last year, and he titled it, "PlayStation Needs a Second Showcase This Year." And it was this closing line that made many fans think we would get a second show in 2023. He said the following: "It's understood that a lot of the games we are waiting on seeing are pretty much ready, so I'm not sure why Sony decided to wait this time around." Now, if you combine this with the report that Sony voluntarily and internally delayed a handful of first-party games, it starts to look as if PlayStation is sandbagging or saving first-party games that were, according to sources, basically ready to go. So why would Sony do this? Why delay games? Why push games back and save them? Well, my theory is that this is all about the PS5 Pro so that it can get traction. And I think that gets traction when you read this quote from The Verge. And when they reported on the PS5 Pro, they said the following: "Sources familiar with Sony's plans tell The Verge that Sony is asking developers to create a new PS5 Pro exclusive graphics mode in games that combines Sony's new PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution PSSR upscaling to 4K resolution with a 60 frame rate and ray tracing effects." It stands to reason that the first developers to be tasked with doing this would be first-party PlayStation studios. And based on how they treated the PS4 Pro announcement, I've continued to say that the PS5 Pro would be announced not until it's absolutely necessary, which put my prediction in September. I originally said they would do a PS5 Pro State of Play and have it released maybe in October or November, but it's looking like the PlayStation Showcase is actually going to be what happens in September. And friend of the channel, Detective Seeds, is claiming that that is exactly what will happen. He tweeted the following: PlayStation Showcase will be Thursday, September 12th, 4 p.m. Eastern, from what I've been told by 2 employees within PlayStation Org. Now, if these sources have accurate information, it really drives home my question and criticism. PlayStation should have ended their state of play with a quick video from Herman Hulst saying something to the effect of, "We hope you enjoyed this brief look at exciting upcoming titles, and we can't wait to share more from our first-party studios later this year at our PlayStation Showcase." Just one sentence like that would have gone a long way. It would have made it clear that the state of play was not a showcase, and it would have let everybody know that more was coming. Now, this theory about the PS5 Pro and the showcase, it answers questions about first-party silence and internal delays. For example, I really wanted to see Ghost of Tsushima 2 answered and announced during this time period, during our showcase season that we're now leaving. And there's a very strong possibility that we still get that later this year. But this theory doesn't answer questions about Spider-Man 2 DLC or the LEGO Horizon Adventures game or Astrobot. So, what is PlayStation doing with these games and announcements? First, let's start with Astrobot. Those hoping for a knockdown, drag-out showcase were probably not in the best place to have the State of Play show ender be Astrobot, but I, for one, loved this game's trailer. It's jam-packed full of PlayStation first-party game Easter eggs and references, while also sending a clear message. This is not just some fun tech demo for your DualSense controller. It's a full-blown game with lots of gameplay variety and huge, action-packed boss fights. But if you were in doubt about this game, the previews are starting to land, and the praise for this game is not just universal, it is glowing. Games Radar said that, quote, Astrobot's joyful experimentation turns it into PlayStation's answer to Super Mario Wonder. That is high praise, and we're hearing that echoed from virtually everybody who got to play the game. And based on what we're hearing, I think this game will surprise a lot of people at the Game Awards this year for a couple of reasons. First, this type of game is going to stand tall simply because it's going to hit a broad spectrum of players across the gaming press. The jury process for the Game Awards is largely driven by review outlets, and Astrobot is the kind of game that will be both broadly approachable but also largely loved. It harkens back to an era that many in the gaming world have wanted to see a return to. Classic platformers with fun and accessible action sequences. They tend to be very popular. And the second reason this game could really stand out and land in a lot of Game Award categories, Nintendo would be its main competition, and they are having a lighter year. Now, this is likely due to Nintendo saving some of their big games and titles for the Switch 2 in 2025. There are also lots of RPGs, action-adventure games, and multiplayer games every year, but games like Astrobot are typically only coming from Nintendo. So don't underestimate this little guy. His game is already packing a punch. But what about LEGO Horizon Adventures? This title is already creating a debate amongst the console loyalists. Obviously, there are bad faith arguments about this game that they think that this means PlayStation will become a third-party publisher. I think we can just dismiss and ignore those arguments. They're not made in good faith. But what about the fans who feel like this is a betrayal? Mainly because they're seeing a first-party piece of property land on another console, the Nintendo Switch. And others were quick to dismiss this as no big deal, saying things like, well, it's not really a PlayStation game. This really has nothing to do with PlayStation. That is simply untrue. Guerrilla is co-developing the game, and PlayStation appears to be publishing it. And more than that, Guerrilla spoke with VGC about why they wanted to make this game. The article is titled, Guerrilla says LEGO Horizon Adventures and Nintendo Switch were a natural fit. And in the article, the narrative director from Guerrilla said the following, I keep mentioning it, but we want this to be for everyone, and the Switch is really a platform that allows us to broaden the audience. But what does this mean for future first-party games and property? Well, for starters, it's important to remember that LEGO games are in a different category. This isn't a tentpole AAA narrative-driven game, as Herman Hulst described recently. This falls more into the experimental category, and obviously has to collaboratively and cooperatively be agreed upon with PlayStation and LEGO. And LEGO likely wanted the game to land on Nintendo due to how well their games sell over there. But clearly PlayStation had some level of say in the matter of what platforms the game lands on, because it's not hitting the PlayStation 4 and it's not hitting Xbox, which some took issue with it not being on PS4, given how much stronger that console is than the Nintendo Switch. But PlayStation made it very clear they are no longer making or putting first-party games on the PS4, and a LEGO Horizon game hitting that console would feel like a step in the wrong direction. It is not, however, a change in strategy for the big first-party AAA games. LEGO games are a natural fit for the Nintendo Switch. We're hearing this game is only about an 8-hour game. This isn't some huge endeavor. The future PS5-only titles like Last of Us 3 or Ghost of Tsushima 2, they're not going to be downgraded and ported to the Switch, as they are very central to the hardware strategy of PlayStation. Which makes some people ask, well, why is PlayStation focusing on titles like Astrobot and like LEGO Horizon? Those don't feel like the console movers that we've seen. They seem like a big departure from flagship titles that have been used to promote the PS5. And this is where I have to be a little bit more speculative, but I can't see this any other way. Recent reports show that the younger generation of gamers are actually playing more on console than the other platforms. Now, this goes against what many saw to be conventional wisdom, that the younger generation would gravitate toward mobile or tablet gaming. I see Astrobot and LEGO Horizon as cross-generational games. And I don't mean cross-gen with respect to hardware, but with respect to the gaming public. My kids will absolutely love both of these games. My daughter continues to ask me about that cute Astro game that I showed her. If you have kids like mine, who are both 8 and 10, and they grow up with games like Astrobot, and they become very familiar with IP like Horizon, they're just naturally going to gravitate to the PlayStation platform. I know this to be true for myself when it comes to Mario, Zelda, and Metroid. I grew up with those characters and games, and even now, I'm 42 years old, and they still pull me back to Nintendo whenever they launch a new game. Now, side note, this is why I'm really hoping the Nintendo Switch 2 can deliver 60 FPS in their games like Zelda, because it's becoming a little bit harder to go back to the Nintendo Switch. But that's beside the point. PlayStation is, in my opinion, very obviously targeting a new generation with these games. And the brilliance of this strategy is that folks my age are still going to buy, play, and enjoy both Astrobot and LEGO Horizon, because the Horizon previews are also landing, and it's getting very consistent praise as well. But that leaves one question unanswered. What and where is the Spider-Man 2 DLC? The only thing I can come up with that makes the most sense is that it will be leveraged during the showcase and show off the PS5 Pro enhancements. Not quite the same way that Burning Shores DLC for Horizon Forbidden West. It was only available on the PS5 and not available on the PS4, but more in the way that Horizon Forbidden West had cinematic lighting during gameplay on the PS5, but it did not have that on the PS4. I could see that the way Spider-Man 2 is built, and with Insomniac's history of lots of performance options in games like Ratchet and Clank, they could really have been tasked with using Spider-Man 2 to show off the PSSR upscaling tech. So in light of all these questions, and in light of this theory, what do I really think is going on here? The only way I can come up with a sensible answer to the question, what is PlayStation doing, is to conclude that this is all calculated. They simply have too many studios and too much property to stay silent for much longer. Eventually, the dam has to break, and the most logical place for that to happen is at the showcase to usher in the second half of this generation. And I personally think the PS5 Pro is going to play a more important role than the PS4 Pro did. The upscaling technology that they've built is targeting thresholds that they do not anticipate hitting on the PS5 Pro, which means they see this as a technological bridge between generations. As developers become accustomed to leveraging the tech for upscaling the performance of their games, it will be even stronger and hit even higher levels of performance on the next generation, the PS6. Because of this, I think PlayStation has placed more importance on the announcement as well as the enhancements that the games receive on the PS5 Pro, especially from their first-party lineup. And I also think targeting a broader audience with your IP, like this Horizon Lego game, and hitting a younger audience with both the Lego game and Astrobot, that's a long-term strategy. Based on the early feedback of both of these games, it has a very good chance of paying off for the platform. So, what is PlayStation doing? I think they're playing the long game. And by the end of this year, I think we'll have a better picture of if it's working or not. But those are just my thoughts. And now it's time to hear your thoughts. And you can do that in a comment below or come over to the live stream. This video will redirect. There's also a card at the end and a pinned comment below with a link to that live stream. And if you like this content and you want more like it, please remember to like, share, and subscribe.